Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to talk about Shiver Me Timbers. This is a game by Michael Witkowski. Hopefully I'm making it right. This is a sandbox piratey game where you are on the high seas basically doing whatever the heck you piratey well want. It's let's just roll into it. Let's see what it's like.
So let's get into an example of play. Now, to let you know, this game is unabashedly and unapologetically a sandbox game. That comes with some ramifications, one of which is there's not a common flow of the game which you're trying to optimize your path through it more than others. In fact, people are going to be spreading out all over this special sea world here to find different things to do and different ways to accomplish tasks. However, there are at the end of it all, in a two-player game, there's three objectives, two of which need to be completed to trigger the end of the game. They can be stay undefeated, in other words, never lose, hide 7,000 gold in your chest, and defeat two fortresses. These are really high-level objectives that you're going to be aiming towards, not necessarily with them always in your spyglass, but always up there waiting for you to complete, you or your opponent. You can complete all of them, but you can also designate two of them as special secret objectives that are going to give you a little more for completing them in sneaky piratey ways. You also have, as we talked about, the various decks, which we'll go over. The reality is I'm just going to go through, rather than go through a chronological example of play, I'm going to go through a symbolic example of play, because you can do any number of things on your turn. We have our first ship. This is Captain Yellowjack. Anyway, because it's yellow. Anyway, and they have, in their special dials, I've already upgraded him to level 4. Now, every ship starts off level 3. What does that mean? It means that you can travel 3 spaces, noted by the 3 pirate skulls on your sails. You can carry 3 3 cargo items, and you have 1, 2, and 3, that's a gun, power to be able to fight with. So these are kind of the facets of your ship that are going to be represented here in the things you carry, but here on the map. Everybody starts in a given town. They choose, and there's usually a little bit of a bonus. Like I get a bonus that gives me +1 when strength when searching treasure. We'll learn about that in a bit. Let's just get over the things you can do. Well, obviously the first thing you can do is you can move. Now, moving is pretty simple. How many skulls on the sails? 3. Well, that's your movement. However, every round you have a little bit of a bonus in this. You can play it with events or without, but let's just say that this adds nothing to your movement. So then you can choose to travel. You travel, these are the dots that you travel. You can land in different things. So let's say we go 1, 2, and we want to stop here. We're allowed to peek at this. Oh, look, it's just a trader. It's not an angry pirate. So I don't have to reveal this to people, but I can choose to go, okay. Now I can take a second of my 3 actions per turn and do things like attack. And if the attributes, certain attributes on my ship are better than those of the trader, I can actually mark it to kind of like whittle it down to the point I can board it. Once it's time to board, you go into a dueling phase, and I'll show that shortly. Dueling noted. Anyway, so let's say that we did that. That's the first thing you can do. You can travel. Where you travel, different things happen. If you get to each port, you can forget it. You can see with this handy sort of placard what you can do. Every town has some things it does uniquely and some things that anybody can do anywhere. We'll go over those as well. So let's say we did some movement, we did travel, we showed that. We can upgrade. Anywhere you go, you can upgrade your ship. Upgrading is easy. Basically, whatever the level is, you start off 3, 3, and 3. So if you want to have upgrade to level 4 sails to move farther, that's 400. Level 5, 500. Level 6, 600. 600 in gold. So 5 doubloons, happiness, big pieces of 8. So you can upgrade that. You can trade. Every island has certain things, and it's listed on this card that you can trade. You can buy cocoa, you can buy rum, you can buy sugar, and you collect those, and you spin your little spin your wheel to get to note that you've received those goods or whatever. So you can buy them for relatively cheap, and then you go to islands, different islands, and you sell them, and you get the profit from them based on the chart. You can hunt for treasure anywhere, and hunting for treasure is a matter of going, okay, I can grab the top X cards and I can look and go, ooh, what do I want? Well, look at this. You pick one and discard the other one, and like shipwright's tools. Ooh, I can get 2 victory points if I manage to get this sucker completed. And you have to go to Sao Tome, so we would have to literally travel from here to Sao Tome, and then when we do, we can begin this quest. We start at the 0 spot, and it says to go 19 steps. So 19. There you go. So there you go. So what that means is, as an action, this doesn't cost an action, but as an action, you can use the strength, and you can use your strength to be traveling along on this particular path. If you get to certain dice, you roll them. Bad things on the red, decent thing, white and green are different, but basically you're going along. When you get to the point where you exceed or get to that point, you've found this treasure, and that means, yeah, look at that. So that means it goes here, and now you can take an upgrade of your choice. Woohoo! And you can choose to, eventually, you can tuck that away in your treasure chest. Again, you can choose between one of 2 treasure chests. And you'll get 2 victory points at the end of the game. You can also sell it if you're low on cash, and you'll get 1,700 gold, but you won't get the victory points for it. So that's some treasure hunting. That's pretty cool. When you're not doing that, you can hire crew. You can go to certain islands and hire a crew. You get to pick the crew. You don't have to randomly choose. You can pick whichever crew, and they all give corresponding bonuses. Rituals, you can go to a different island, and you can find rituals. Some of these rituals are important, particularly ones that let you summon a beast. That's right, you can summon a beast. The Kraken. And then when you're at there, you can begin to, in similar fashion, treasure hunting. You can use a particular deck that lets you kind of go fight this thing. Now, it's going to take some time. You've got 14 different spots to go to be able to beat the Kraken, but when you do, the hope is that you get some glorious homage and glory and etc. for it. So those are other things you can do. You can acquire mission cards at Port Royal if you want to do an official mission, and they all vary in what they do. Go here, deliver this, you'll get this and that, and so that's kind of a fun side note. And boarding attacks are interesting because when it's time to board, what you have is you begin this sort of walk the plank, fighting across the plank. Similar, you'll feel vibes from Sid Meier's Pirates, but there's a certain sequence, but the core of it is that basically everyone gets 4 cards, depending on certain attributes of your ship versus their ship. Or fortress or such, you could wind up actually starting ahead of the game or behind the game. But say, for example, we do this. So we're going to do, so say I go first. Let's just say I go first and I do a high attack. Well, can I contend with that? Do I have a guard? Oh, look at that. High guard. Haha, I have beaten you. Haha, now it's my turn. I say a high attack. Well, what do you have? Do you have a feint? No, I could use that. A high guard. Oh, I'd have a high guard too. And then you go back and forth with these cards. Discard a random card. Oh no, that's sadness. Oh, draw 2 cards and discard. And so draw 2 cards and discard, etc. Basically, you go until, well, that's a bad example. Let me say, for example, that I hit with a middle guard, but I didn't have anything to contend with it. It's going to hit for 1 point of damage. Bleh. Arg, fight. Anyway, at a certain point, you're going to go back and forth, and there are going to be times when you're going to take damage. Now, if I was able to leverage damage against my opponent, it might go this way, it might go that way. Bottom line is, if you're ever here at the end of all things, and you end up having to take damage, you lose. If you go through the whole duel, and nobody actually gets sent off the plank, but you're on one side or the other, then that's the winner too. So really, it's just kind of it's a nice back and forth tightrope affair, and you're going to be doing that probably quite a bit during the course of your play. And that's really the essence of it. Those, there's boarding, there's raiding fortresses and stuff, but all of it's really, really just kind of up to you. A lot of sandboxness, a lot of, hey, why don't we go down this way or that way, or just looking at the state of what you want to do. Like, do I want to beef up my ship and just attack crap? Do I want to go on missions and, find lost members of my family? You can do that. If you want to find true love, you can do that. That's kind of an interesting side note. All of these things are possible and capable in this sandboxy affair. So with that, let's get into my final thoughts on Shiver Me Timbers.
Okay, everyone, final thoughts on Shiver Me Timbers. Never gets old talking about that. Let's talk about the cons first. Nope, nope, nope. We're going to talk about the pros first. Uh, Basically, let's go over that list pretty quick. Shiver Me Timbers has tremendous game components. It has a lot of love and attention put into every single facet of the components. You have the modular map, which didn't, I was a little not sold on, but I do believe it does exactly what it intends to do and does it well. I have no problem with it now that I've played it a bit. Really like just the solidity of the components. The boards are thick. Your player boards are thick. The additional Kickstarter doubloons, pieces of 8 are just, I just love the like the clinking and clanking of the coins as they lie on there. The cards are good quality. The ships are really well engineered. Uh, Honestly, everything. There's only one tiny thing that didn't make sense, and that is the stand-up standees. Now, each island that you're at has a standee that sort of tells you iconographically what it is you do. Here's the thing, though. It's got this great big stand, and then it narrows down to a bottom, and then there's a little tiny place for setting it down. Basically, you're just asking it to fall over. You're begging it to fall over in that construction. There really needed at least to be along, like the entire bottom of it needed to be straight. But honestly, I don't think you needed it anyway. I think it would have served just to have it either on the island itself in the tile, just a little hint, or maybe just a card next to it or something. But yeah, that was a little out of place. The art itself is very evocative of the time period. Lots of piratey goodness in the artwork. The card art is good. The sea creatures you fight are also, I mean, that looks pretty cool, little cylindrical. You don't actually have a miniature, but you have kind of the idea that you're taking on this giant gargantuan leviathan of a creature. There's lots of clear love and passion that's put into this game, even component-wise. But you can tell someone who loves pirates, who loves the pirate theme, really, really put their heart and soul into it. You can tell, you just can. The other thing is this is a truly sandbox game. This is not a game that's, yeah, there's lots of parallel pockets of purpose to plan and plot in piratey ways. It just is. There's moving, there's fighting, there's love, there's familial reckonings, there's trading, treasure hunting, missions, upgrading your ship, all of these things. Many of these things are kind of their own subsystem um, of sorts that you dive into as you kind of make your way along this meandering pirate trail of glory. Uh, there's a wide variety of opportunities along this dispersed route you can take. There's lots of crew to acquire. There's lots of missions, lots of treasure. Just a nice large variety, a well produced and well packed game. Now let's get into the cons. When I say it's a sandbox, it means it's a sandbox, and it really, truly, truly, in almost every facet, lives towards that goal and focuses on the idea that it's a sandbox. That's good, but there are ramifications to that zeal to be that. It means that not all roads are equal. Your play style kind of drives how you're gonna like it. If you're someone who's driven to win and get those objectives and whatever, I mean, you are going to find the best, the most optimal route, and you're going to blaze through it, and that's going to remove a lot of the other sandbox elements that don't simply make sense to do if you're someone who's driven to want to win. If your play style is more, let's just enjoy the journey, mateys, then this is not as big of a factor. But just be warned that not all paths are equal. The manual had a lot of thought put into it and a whole lot of words. But honestly, oddly, it trips on its own verbosity and stumbles on curious lack of clarity in places. This includes like the cards as well, ambiguous conditions, ambiguous things. I mean, in someone, it leaves me scratching my head. Um, but because the organization is the like information's there, but the organization is diffused. I think this is one of those cases where because it's a sandbox game, uh, that it leaves it in this unenviable position of trying to explain a host of different things, and it often leaves sort of gaps. There isn't a clear, like, even the setup is kind of like we've got a prelude to a setup and the setup page, and what can you do, what don't you do. It's honestly a little bit trickier than it really needed to be. One of the things I do whenever I find a rule book that's not sterling is I kind of look at the activity of forum traffic and see if the designers are actively there kind of answering questions. And again, their response has been above average. They will answer questions generally quickly. There's a fact that kind of explains things and covers some murky situations. And so points to that, credit where due. The other thing is there's a diffusion of purpose that makes it harder to teach right away. You're not going to be able to throw this on the table like, say, Black Flag or some of the simple extraordinary pirate adventures and stuff, where you can really just throw it on the table and go, okay, everybody, this is the rules now. Let's get playing. It's like, well, what can I do? Well, how do I do this? Well, what do I do that? There's a little sheet of information, a little card for everybody. But if you're really going to do something, you're going to be like, well, what does that mean to go find my family? And what does it mean to go take a treasure? To explain the treasure thing, it's a little bit tricky. Each of the subsystems of themselves are pretty clever, to be honest. I'm actually amused by it, but I don't feel that they cohese well in the entire experience, again, because I think it's a sandbox, and I think that some of these things are just kind of like, we're going off to do this, we come back, that was fun, that was less fun. Honestly, the best way to go after this game is to just go where the wind takes you, literally and metaphorically. Just go, what do I do here and stuff. Might not be exciting for everyone around you, but still, what the heck. The ships are atrocious in some ways. I gave up and I've ordered cubes because it's got to be. It's strange because it's an impressive dichotomy of both clever engineering, clever theoretical engineering, and really clunky, fiddly, joyless applied engineering. It just flipping, undoing, clamping back on. Uh, I dreaded upgrading the hull. I really did. Like, okay, break it apart, put the piece on, get it just right so it's not so tight I can't thumb it. Um, I don't know. The color scheme is awful. White has to be sugar, so yellow has to be rum, and then light kind of brown is cocoa, but regular brown is the color of the ship, and not real great if you don't really have a good color sensation. And there isn't even like a color light. It's just, uh, yeah. I honestly, when I read about it, thought that was the coolest thing with the ships. Oh, cool! I don't have to have extra pieces to go track. It's just going to be right there on the ship. Oh, cool! I can actually feel, build this sort of, mech, almost like mech building, like add the guns, add this and stuff. It seems so cool in theory, but when I'm playing it, and when you're having to do it over and over, it gets old really fast. I mean, it just gets old. And so I definitely think they had a lot of great ideas, uh, but none of those great ideas were good ideas. So in that regards, great thought, looks artistically awesome, not what I'm interested in playing. So the other thing that I lacked was it feel tensionless. I mean, just tensionless pirate games are there's precious little tension. You have a pretense of tension, but no real substance of tension in a lot of the game. To me, fear is a pivotal part of piracy. you're running for your life, fear and glory, and how they enmesh, and how you're like, oh, look behind you, are the nations coming after me? Which ones did I make mad? Which ones did I didn't? Here, you can choose your battles for the most part. There are some when you're like, oh, I flipped up this pirate hunter, so I guess I better fight it and stuff. But for the most part, the sea battles are generally yawners. You're just like ping, 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 duel. Duel is interesting. It all comes kind of funnels into the dueling, and you're like, okay, I get that. Going back and forth, a little murky on the rules for that too, but figured it out. But yeah, okay, I get it. High, low. There's a little bit of like, you know, information you'll know and some you don't. But you know what? They tried, and I think that they tried to do the sort of like Sid Meier's Pirates. And so I give them credit for that. But honestly, I just feel like there was precious little tension. At higher player counts, there's more tension, but even then, there's like aggressive players would help with that. But just honestly, the tension level was more like playing shuffleboard on an AARP cruise than doing a battle of wits and sabers with Jack Sparrow. And I wanted the latter, not the former. Um, and honestly, all of these things come down to one thing, other than maybe the tension. It's a sandbox game. It really focuses on being a sandbox game, and when you fully embrace it, it means you never know what you're going to get. It's the Forrest Gump of pirate games. Um, so, yeah. So what do I love about Shiver Me Timbers? Ugh, nothing. What do I like about Shiver Me Timbers? Quite a lot, actually. To be honest, of all of the things that I've gone into, and this has been sort of a negative couched review, there are things I really like about it. I really like what they tried to do. I like the little map. I like the idea. There's a lot of cards, a lot of crew, a lot of different things that you can go do. It feels like you're kind of in an amusement park, kind of like, hey, let's go do this. It takes 3 tickets. This takes 7. Oh, and like cost effective. Like I like it. I like that they tried to make all these little sub mini games. In some ways, I'm reminiscent of say, in some ways, I wish they'd done sort of like Space Cadets, or some of the other games where you have these different stations or Merchant's Cove kind of thing. Um, but they try, but each of those is kind of a shadow of what I wanted. It's like, oh, that's a tantalizing thing, dueling or sea to sea battles or finding my true love or whatever. It's like it's a shadow of what I wanted, but it doesn't have the tangible substance that really made it feel like it shined in any one particular area. Um, the best way to play this game, and I realize it's negative, but I'm not actually negative on the game. The best way to play the game is to throw away the idea that someone wins and just just play as if you have a more interesting Tales of the Arabian Nights kind of story making kind of thing. And that's really where you can probably see it at its best. It's basically Mario Party the pirate game. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, there's a contest, but ooh, we do this mini game and this is fun. Oh, this is brutally hard, whatever. So despite the fact that it's loose on rules and maybe a little bit too leisurely for a pirate game, at the same time, I can so see the love of piracy games in here and the wonderful touches of love that are clearly shining through from a designer who tried very hard to put Sid Meier's Pirates in a box. It didn't quite win that duel, but he fought valiantly. I'll not pull it out often, but if I do, I'll take what I can and give nothing back. And to be fair, I honestly, if someday, somebody shores up some of the systems and maybe, fixes up some of the things that are a little loose and puts out Shiver Me Timbers on Kickstarter, I would probably likely back it because I think there's a lot of potential in Shiver Me Timbers that I'd love to see realized someday. So right now the search goes on. There's the perfect pirate game is still out there somewhere in the future. For now, Merchants and Marauders is still the king of the hill. Shiver Me Timbers is a delightful segue, but not quite meeting the expectations that I had hoped for. Maybe next time. And on that note, we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.